So every morning this week, I've been starting my day off with a lecture, which today came from Yale, and I didn't have to leave my apartment to do it, and it was completely free, so naturally I showed up. Today's course covered Dante's Divine Comedy, and tomorrow I have a class from Harvard on the works of Shakespeare, followed by a psychology lecture from Princeton. So then I must be impossibly and obnoxiously wealthy, right? Except I'm not. As you might have already gathered, I take all my classes online, and they're all completely free, with a full semester's worth of a schedule straight from the Ivy Leagues. But how does it work? The thing is, there are literally thousands, tens of thousands of full courses and recorded lectures that are just sitting in an archive available for anyone to access. And they're the exact same classes taught to enrolled students. So I guess you could say I self-enrolled, quote unquote. I'm of the opinion that it's vastly more fun not only knowing that your courses are going to be free, but removing any limits that a traditional college education comes with doesn't hurt either. You don't have to worry about classes filling up or fitting a class in that a professor decides he needs to teach way too early or way too late in the night, and your coursework then becomes wide open. You could take 10 classes on writing a novel or one class about some obscure astronomy theory. I mean, you could take a class at 3 a.m. at a 24-hour diner while you're half asleep, if you feel compelled to, and you could finish that class the next morning in bed. It's the same information without being tied to a classroom setting. I do want to know quickly though, I know I'm probably over-explaining a pretty straightforward concept. There are thousands of free courses taught by Ivy League schools and other universities that you can access at any time. But the thing is, this is such a wildly underused resource, and I just don't think enough people talk about it. For so many of us, it's something that we could be leaning more into and to allow ourselves to be educated on topics that we're interested in for free. In my case, I've landed on taking 24 courses this year, roughly equating to a manageable workload of 10 hours a week. And yes, I'm not getting college credit or being graded, and there's no diploma at the end. Essentially, I'm doing it purely for the sake of learning. Of course, I should probably give a small disclaimer. This approach that I'm sharing with you today only really makes sense if, like me, you're self-employed, or you're settled into your career and content with where you are professionally, or if your dream job doesn't need a formal diploma to pursue it. Which also means if you just graduated high school or you're aiming for a profession that needs some sort of accreditation, please ignore me. This isn't a big manifesto against higher education. If anything, it's quite the opposite. I will say this though, sometimes it's nice to step away from lectures and note-taking. There's certain classes, especially in the creative arts, that only start to make sense through practice, and as a painter, I've always looked for new creative techniques and inspiration. And that is where Craftsy comes in, who is also kindly the sponsor of this video. Craftsy is your online resource for all things creative, with a community of millions of crafters and makers who come to advance their skills and learn new ones along the way. They offer over 2,000 classes in everything from painting to cooking to sewing, and they're always releasing new videos in over 20 creative categories to keep you inspired. There's something really cozy about the classes that are taught. They feel very thoughtfully paced, like being in a class one-on-one with someone that you could tell they're really taking their time to teach you. And as someone that paints exclusively in acrylic, whether it's on canvas or a mural wall, I've been meaning to try other mediums, and I found this class called Principles of Composing a Floral Still Life in Oil by Katie Lydiard that I'm really excited to try out soon. It instantly took me back to one of the first college assignments that I had using oil paints, and I just remember being pretty intimidated by the new medium, but it was still fun to get out of my comfort zone, and I'll insert a photo of that if I could find it. But I'm taking this class as my sign to try it again and veer away from using acrylic paints, and maybe get better at realism from my otherwise very cartoony art style. If you're ready to discover a new, exciting class, I have great news for you, as the first 1,000 of my subscribers that use my link or use my QR code on the screen will get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49. Thank you, Craftsy, for sponsoring this video. So to give you a little bit of a backstory quickly, last month, I realized there's really only two ways to pursue an education, and that is, you either pay the price or you figure out how to get it for free. I spent a couple of years attempting option one at the Art Institute of Chicago. As you can imagine, that means paying the equivalent of an experience where your college hallways are essentially stitched into the art museum itself. So, after embracing the bittersweet ownership of an ever-expanding student loan debt, I figured it was time to choose the second option. I'm 26, so the way I see it, I'm too old for a college dorm room, and I'm too young to give up on the pursuit of knowledge, which, of course, should never stop. Anyways, I figured that even though I chose not to complete the 4 years towards a bachelor's degree, college still served its purpose. I still get to live as an independent artist and use the knowledge from the courses that I did take, and it's allowed me to do what I love. So, as I mentioned earlier, I'll be taking 24 courses this year. This might sound like a lot to take on, or maybe not enough depending on who's listening. But if you're considering making your own syllabus, I think that the most important part of it is tailoring it to a rhythm that suits your life. And for me, that rhythm is seasonal. Each quarter of the year has its own atmosphere, and I find myself being in very different states of mind during each one of them. So I asked myself, what kind of class belongs in the heat of July, something that I could picture studying on the beach in the middle of the day? This winter, I'll be taking the Science of Well-Being from Yale, which is a course that's light in spirit, and I think it's perfect to beat seasonal depression before it starts. And in the spring, I figured that it was only fitting to revisit the teachings of Peter Singer with his course on effective altruism from Princeton University. This year marks 10 years for me since going vegan, and coming across his course brought me back to the memory of randomly coming across one of his lectures on YouTube. I hadn't really considered the lifestyle beforehand, but after that video, something just clicked for me that I went vegan that very day. The irony isn't lost on me, though, that Peter himself is not fully vegan. If anything, I'm a living example of his ability to persuade. I'll be taking his class in the springtime, the season of growth, and revisiting the roots of my personal beliefs, and to maybe sharpen them with a bit of new clarity. So here's a bit of a recap on how I ended up organizing my courses with 6 classes per season, covering everything from literature to philosophy, and a few on art and psychology. Also, despite the title of this video, not every class is from an Ivy League, but they all carry that same respected weight. Some come straight from the MoMA, or some from Wesleyan University, which had the most surprising collection of very specific classes with very intriguing titles like How to Change the World. I'll leave a link in the description to the full course list that I'll be taking this year with links to all the classes if it may be helpful to have some inspiration on where to start. I did the math on how much time I'll be spending this year on coursework, and when it's all said and done, I'm looking at about 10 hours a week, which is equivalent to about over an hour a day. If I'm being honest, that's time I used to spend very absent-mindedly scrolling through TikTok, easily over that 1 hour mark. So I thought, why not reassign those hours with a little more intention? Your mind is literally a library of information, so why not curate it so you wake up a little more curious than the day before? All to say, this isn't a video that's meant to come across as a guide or to say follow this syllabus, but more, here is my plan for this year and what I'm doing to inspire myself to learn again and make it feel more special than going to class in a very traditional sense. And there's an endless amount of ways to approach it, but you'll find your own way, because this video isn't about how to study, but how to become someone who studies in a way that feels personal to you. For me, it's becoming a grounding part of my day, and it costs nothing but a little bit of intention to plan it out. So I encourage you to spend not a cent and to enroll to Harvard from your couch, and Yale, and Princeton, and maybe a couple others this year. Anyways, that's all I have. For now, I'll see you in the next video.